following certain what is this?
I'm
Okay.
recording the session because
Okay. So these are like the things that are understood from the theory. I don't know. There are other things that are missed.
the main concept is institutionalization of the organization within the industry by following the norms and values that followed and procedure that followed by other. And you have two types of the old institutionalism, which is concentrate on the internal process and internal standard operating procedures. You follow the internal standard operating procedure. And the new institutionalization, which is from the global, you follow the norms and the procedures of the whole industry from external also, and to adapt in order to adapt with the environment and gain access to the resource like other organizations. The concept of legitimization, the concept of isomorphism, and the type of isomorphic pressure, and the decoupling. And decoupling, you have positive and negative decoupling. When you do positive decoupling, you just concentrate and try to decouple yourself from the other organization in order to gain more competitive advantages, like decoupling the research and development. Because if you are following the norms and the standards, you cannot distinguish yourself from the other organization. But if you decouple the research and development and try to improve your process far away from the other organization, you can do and develop competitive advantage. The negative decoupling, that when, as example, that when international company goes to another country and they try to build its operation there, and she tried to show the society there that she's follow the norms and culture of the society and so on and so on, and under the table she doing something illegal or something that contradict with the cultures and norms and beliefs of the society. This is the positive and negative decoupling. So if you go through all these concepts and write your understanding for this concept, I think it will be fine for the institutional theory.
Okay, so I should add to it negative and positive decoupling. Yeah, you can go ahead. I'm just gonna take notes.
Okay. So we will start with postmodernism theory. Can you go for it, Ikhlas?
Yeah, go ahead.
Postmodernism is defined as skepticism and irony around meta-narratives. It's about refusing the traditions and norms, and they believe that just concept like justice and other things that found in the society are being forced by people in the top in order to misuse it or misuse it by others. Incredulity, the state of being unwilling or unable to believe something. It believes that concepts like justice, democracy were misused by modernists. The modernists established their theories based on some concept like democracy, justice, new market, capitalism, and so on and so on. And they believe that these concepts are misused. The pioneer for the postmodernism theory is Jacques Derrida, Michael Foucault, and Jean-François Lyotard. Derrida talk about structure and center theory, that every human has its own structure, and the structure of the human according its change and varied according to human culture and belief. Foucault talk about that knowledge and the truth created by people in power in order to control society. So the people of that having power shaped the concept of order, the concept of culture, based on their interest in order to control the society. And people are changing according to experience and events. power is high, the discourse is high, and vice versa. If you have power that high level, then your actions, your influence on the society will be high also. Jean-Francois Lyotard talked about moral challenge and philosophical challenge and scientific challenge. These three challenges that offered by Jean-Francois Lyotard. Those are the three pioneers for the postmodernism theory: Derrida, Foucault, and Jean-Francois Lyotard. The main assumption of the theory, it came as a reaction to modernism. It's characterized by a new political and aesthetic movement, challenges posed to all types of authority, including government, institutional, scientific, and artistic, develop a new concept for art and culture. This is it came from philosophical point of view, because those three are philosophers, or what you can call it. But if you replicate it or try to do it for the organization, so modernism is characterized by having rigid bureaucracy. The modernism approach deal with rigid bureaucracy, while postmodernism is characterized by flexible structure. Modernism focus on mass production, postmodernism focus in niche market. Technology, modernism has technological determination, while postmodernism has a freedom of choice. In modernism, jobs are differentiated and the skills are not required. In postmodernism, multitask employees, job that required multitask and highly skilled employees. When it comes to employment relation, it is centralized in modernism, but it's complex and fragmented in postmodernism. These are the difference between modernism and postmodernism within the organizational structure. The feature of postmodernism, it's the fragmentation, the breaking up of established structure into fragment, the differentiation, the blurring or dissolution of established boundaries, hyper-reality, confusion and mixing of the real with artificial, chronology, interest in the past and its imitation alongside, pastiche, the playful mixing of styles, anti-foundationalism, rejection of all basic, absolute, fundamental, universe, extra. Pluralism, all of the above having simultaneous. These are the feature. I took it from the change management course because it's clearly illustrated there. The postmodernism theory actually explained well in the change management course rather than the theory of organization course. So implication of postmodernism. In culture, postmodernism views the attempt to change or manipulate the culture as undesirable and unpredictable. So the change in culture is somehow avoided in postmodernism. Provide the freedom of choice and no one best way for sure. And since reality is socially constructed, then organization can create the reality they wish. It's going beyond the norms and the procedures that followed by other organizations and make your own situation and your own circumstances.
I just want to say something about the social constructions. So the reality is socially constructed because it wasn't clear for me. It means that usually what society thinks as a tradition, let's say, for an example, for boys, we think that the blue color is more suitable, or people choose blue-colored dresses or toys for boys, and for the girls, the pink color. So the postmodernism rejects this. It accepts this social construct that the world is socially constructed, but it tries to change it.
So these are the. You want to add anything, Ikhlas?
No, because basically that's especially postmodernism. It's mostly from. I took it also from change management, and I have also the same information.
The same
So
notes.
it's all clear. Yeah, it's all clear.
Mm.
I only had a problem with modernism, but thanks to Nouri and Mohammed, they tried to explain it to me today. So I'll do my best to study it well.
So the contribution of management, we are talking at the main assumption and the pioneers main assumption, then the contribution of management, the postmodernism contribution to management. They harmonize employees and push management to push employees' productivity by creating good working condition for them. Management became based on motivation and communication rather than based on order and rule. The postmodernism management used with more complex job that requires more skilled workers. So more skilled workers, innovative way of doing the business, rely on high skilled employees and deals with very complex tasks. These are the main contribution of management to postmodernism. Postmodernism management include cross-training, job switching, outsourcing, teamwork, employee empowerment, subcontracting, homework, multitasking, decentralized structure. So this is the new form of doing the task, not the traditional form of doing the jobs like what offered by modernism. The new way of doing the task offered by postmodernism contain all these aspects: cross-training, job switching, outsourcing, teamwork. This is our new concept of doing the business.
Focuses more on the human side and how to like develop their skills, improve their skills, which will eventually reflect on like the productivity and efficiency of the work.
Yes, of course. And the critique for the theory, language cannot assure truth because it's not possible to say something definite. They argue that postmodernism cannot create a new knowledge. They concentrate on every minute of daily life in the exploration of language and meaning. Postmodernism disinterest of real world and cannot make a specific action for wider issues. These are maybe the critique for the philosophical approach, not the organizational approach, I think. This is the valid cultural change and contribute in cultural change and media. So are you talking about the new culture in doing business, give awareness about the globalization and the rise of media, the rise of entrepreneurs and young-owned companies that challenge the common and norms of the rising business practice. The new entrepreneurs and the new startups of business, the new visions of business are challenging the norms and for conditions that other businesses followed during the last year. So these are the summary for postmodernism. Challenging the way of doing business, criticize the previous modern theory, rely on task complexity, innovation, new skilled employees or something like that, fragmentation, de-differentiation, hyper-reality, chronology, pastiche, anti-foundationalism, pluralism. I don't know how we can remember all of them. Maybe
I think it's hard. No, it's hard to remember like de-differentiation, chronology, all these things. But to get the idea, like just knowing that, for example, they focus more on task variety or skill variety, like understanding the main idea.
The main ideas, yes.
Yeah, it's much better than just memorizing like each one by one.
Yes, rejecting the authority, then applying the flat structures where responsibility is shared between the team members, and also including people
more
from different cultures.
Yeah.
More pluralistic and more innovative, innovation oriented. Still, the aim is the same. Maybe they also want to see effective production, but their focus is different, maybe.
Yeah, the way they conduct business or the process is different in order to reach to efficiency, unlike modernism.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So this is for postmodernism theory.
It's very well organized, Zaidan. I like it very
Yeah,
much.
Zaidan, I checked what you did today. Like, أرفع لك القبعة.
نزلت
Sorry,
download the
I speak
software.
in Arabic, but it's really appreciated, like the work you did.
Yes, it's very systematic, just
Yeah.
excellent.
Okay. I was hope to build this software together, or this summary together, in order to contribute. Each one of us can contribute to adding something or try to summarize in more efficient and effective way. This is just only my work, but I hope that we can put it together. Actually, I am thinking of building a YouTube channel to help the other student, or help us after we fail in this.
That's good. Yeah, why not?
Okay. The population ecology theory, I depend mainly on class summary because it's also very hard to understand from the slides of Topa Hoja. It's more 120 slides, and
Yes.
it's very
Yeah, I
complicated
tried
and
to make,
interactive.
especially these theories, like, what do they call them? They have a name for them, the population, the agency. I forgot. Anyways, I will remember them. But I mean, if they ask us, because it's important, sometimes they're gonna tell us, explain these kind of theories. I have to look up for the name.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I will check the Turkish. Let's.
wait,
We can proceed.
Yeah, but we can proceed until we find the name. Yeah, I tried to make them in an easy way to understand, because like from the slides it's too complicated.
Very complicated, actually.
Yeah.
And
I'm having a problem remembering the names of the pioneers.
With Omran book, I think he gave it to me. I think you have it also. They have a very good summary for some of the theories, and the population ecology theory is also presented in the book. And it's
What
very
book?
well.
The one that Erdos prepared, you mean?
With Amran book. It's called Organization Theory, Management and Organization Theory. This one. This,
No, I don't have.
the theories, not all the theories are summarized there, but like agency theory, institutional theory, organization ecology theory, also there, resource-based contingency theory, transaction cost theory. Those are the theories are well summarized inside this book. You can review it 2 or 3 pages just for each one, and it will summarize, well presented in this book, actually.
Yeah, I remember it now. They call them the adaptation theories. So if they ask about what are the adaptation theories, it's population, agency, I think, resource dependency.
Population, agency, resource dependency.
Yeah.
Adaptation theory.
And?
They call it adaptation theories?
Adaptation theories, yeah. They say, what are the adaptation theories?
Because they are very much concerned with the environment.
Yes, and the organization.
The institutional maybe is also.
Which one?
The institutional.
Institutional, yes. I think also institutional is one of the adaptation theories.
Okay.
Okay, we can go ahead with the
population ecology theory. The pioneers for population ecology theory are Michael P. Hannan, the book of population ecology. They study the death of mortality and birth of and the growth of the organization. So they study the organization from the birth, the growth, and the death, mortality, the life cycle of the organization, we can call it like that. Understand the condition in which organization born, grow, and die. Organization consume resource, shape changes over time. The main assumption for the organization population theory or population ecology theory. They study the death and birth and the growth of the organization. They study the dynamic change in the organization. Organizations that characterize with structural inertia are known for the inability to adapt to environmental change. Structural inertia here is the rigidity of the organization and unadaptability of the organization with the external environment. Replaced with the new organizations that respond better. These the organizations that have inertia or structural inertia, they're being replaced with other organizations that respond better to change. The main concept of the theory is founding of organization from scratch. The founding of organization from scratch happened through merger with two companies joined together and form another new company. The spin off, the immigration. What the meaning of spin off and immigration class?
I didn't focus about these things. The main idea, I think, is to know what are the concepts like founding. What is it
Yes.
the birth or the founding of a new organization? So this is the birth stage, and then we go to growth, and then we have mortality, which is the death and decline.
Yes, mortality happens through termination, merger, or out migration also. This we have immigration and out migration.
We can give these things as an example. So for example, for founding, you can say through mergers, and then mortality, you can say through termination or also mergers.
The inertia, as we say earlier, in the flexibility, and when the organization is unable to adapt to the change. The density, the number of organization in a specific time period. So if you are analyzing or surveying the number of organization in specific time period, so the number called the density. Legitimation, this is when the organization grow and become big and become legitimized inside the industry that it work with. Competition, rivalry for resources. The element of population, variation. So many changes appear in the organization population. So selection, organization come up with a niche and able to survive. So the variation, so many change appear in the organization population. What we
Actually, Zaidan, I'm sorry, but for the elements in population, I took a note that it's a process of ecological change, which starts with variation. We have so many new organizations, and after some time, the environment selects those who are capable of standing, basically survive. Some organizational forms suit the environment better than others. They are more reliable and accountable, and we have the retention, which is some forms get reproduced and institutionalized as relatively permanent. So maybe we can explain it in a cycle. First, we have a lot of variations, a lot of organizations, then the environment selects, and some of them can retain, they can stand forever or until they die, and because of the inertia, they can die very quickly, or and there are many factors like the age, the size, but this is like a cycle, and it's called ecological process of ecological change.
Ecological
change.
Process of change.
Yes, and for the variation, we have, like I said, a variety of companies, but those who can, who are the best, the environment selects them. So in the variation, in the first stage, they may not be the best possible variation, but in the selection, they got selected, and the retention, like in the ecology, some species can survive. The ones that can't, they just die or disappear.
Select some of the organization
Yes.
that can survive.
Yes. Those that are reliable and accountable. Those who trusts, maybe the environment trusts.
The environment trust.
And the retention, you can leave it, it's true. And also some forms get reproduced as relatively permanent.
Some companies are able to start with the position in the environment by institutionalizing itself. This is the retention phase.
Yes.
Mhm. So the other assumption about why birth rate decrease. So why the organization birth rate decrease? Because of the diminished resource, the increased level of competition, increased number of companies and organizations within a certain space, hinder the rise or birth of a new organization, hence the boundary becomes saturated. So we have diminished resource, competition, and saturation among the organization within a certain boundary. The key principles of the theory: inertia and the change, it's adapt to change or die, organizational diversity, while there are so many or so few, focusing on effect of social, economical, political that affect these rates. These the organization diversity, explain why there's so many organizations from this type and so few organizations from another type. So it answers this question. Niche theory, and discuss the two types of organization: the specialist organization and the generalist organization. The specialist organizations that specialize in one certain or specific service or product or industry, and they can thrive in a stable and certain environment. While generalists that have the variety of service or products or industry, they work inside it, so it have a good adaptability and can survive in unstable environment. So the death rate for generalist is somehow less than the specialist. Resource partitioning, it depends on the different degree of market concentration. This is what's written, but can you explain more about it?
I didn't understand also resource partitioning.
Yes, I can explain. I took some notes. It's the relationship between generalist and specialist organization, and it's further developed in the resource partitioning model, which includes predictions about the founding and mortality rates of both specialists and generalists as a function. Sharing resources means, let's say, like in the nature, animals, we have, let's think about animals who live in the sea. Some of them are living deeper, some of them are living in the upper level, and each of them finds different resources to eat. And this is the same with for the market, for the generalists and specialists. We know that generalists are usually big companies, and they concentrate on the target consumers on the center in this resource partitioning theory. They concentrate on the mass market and thrive by exploiting economies of scale, just like in the Porter's business strategies, low-cost strategy. Those firms, generalists, they concentrate on the market, and what is left for the specialists, they concentrate on niche markets. What is left from the generalists? What is left from in the periphery? And if you can make the connection, like the whales, let's say, in the whales in the sea eat the biggest fish, and the small fish eat planktons or something like that. This you can make something like that, the resource sharing in the environment. Generalists are concentrated in the mass market, and they gain through making economies of scale. Because they are big, they can earn from economies of scale. But we have the specialist organizations, they earn from niche markets. Let's say we have some let's say we have some retailers, big shops, and like, I don't know, Carrefour in Turkey or Kaufland in Europe, in Bulgaria. But we have also some specialized grocery shops, or some specialized firms. Let's say they sell only organic food. Let's say they sell only non-sugar food. They also have their place in the niche, in the environment. So generalists are in the mass market, and specialists are in the niche markets, in the periphery of the market, maybe we can say something like that.
So what left from the generalist consumed by the specialist?
Yes, yes.
In short.
Yes, yes.
Thank you, Nuri, for your.
You're welcome. I will send my notes about the population ecology, so you can compare them.
Okay.
This is what I understand. And under stable environmental circumstances, generalists will be outcompeted by specialists, it says. So when there's no change, specialists will be more successful, because they offer more focused products or differentiated products, like in Porter's strategy. It seems like everything is connected. I don't know.
Maybe in the stable environment, specialists prevail, but in the turbulent environment, the generalists can.
Yes, because they have.
Yes.
They have more experience than specialists.
Okay.
It's like resource sharing. That's how I can explain this. Generalists are opening space for specialists in the markets. This is the resource partitioning. So they can thrive in the same environment. They can do business without reflecting each. Of course, they have some competition. There's some competition.
Both of them are operating in the business.
Yes.
Market. But in different, like we can say, percentages, where the generalists, the bigger percentage, and the specialists are more focused.
Yes, like we may have some grocery where we sell every type of vegetables or fruits, but specialists will sell only fruits that are exported from tropical countries, or some organic food or something like that.
The concept is understood now.
Okay.
You can generalize your note and add it to this slide, and I can put this new modified file on the link, the drive, Google Drive link.
Okay.
Okay. The density dependence. Density اللي number, the rate of founding and mortality depend, يعني number of organization within a certain boundary is we call it the density, and it depends on the rate of mortality and founding. The rates of mortality and founding within the organization depend on the degree of legitimation of the organization and the degree of competition within this boundary. If the organization has already reached the retention stage and become legitimized inside the boundary, as we mentioned earlier, that its chance for mortality will be decreased. And if the competition is high, So the mortality rate will be high. If the competition is low, the mortality rate will be low. So the density is it's the number of organization in the market. This is the density. Age dependence. So the organization mortality depends on the age of the organization and the relation between the age and mortality. The death or survivor organization is related to its age. So they have four concepts in this age dependence: liability of newness, high failure of risk. So the new organization faces a new or high failure or high risk failure. The smallness, if it starts small, so you are risk of becoming failing soon. Risk of failing, change in the environment, absence of slack resources. Because you are small, once the environment is a change and the resources is diminished, so your chance of acquiring the required resource will be low because because the organization is small. In
Has
contrast,
limited access to resources.
yes, of course, limited access to resource because of your size. The big organization can differentiate its resource. So if the resource is diminished, they can acquire another resource or alternative resource. The big organization have support from the government and suppliers because of its size. Liability of adolescence, more chance to survive once the organization pass through the birth and growing and become adult inside the industry. So it's a great, it's a chance of survive will be great. Aging, liability of aging, organizations that become big in age or have too many years inside the industry have the probability of dying or mortality will be a higher chance because they follow strict rules and procedures that they followed from the past, and these rules and procedures might not work in these days. So if they didn't change their culture or it change their way of doing business, they will vanish and die, and their mortality rate will be high. So these are for the age dependency.
Yes, it's also very
I
nice.
think this one
configuration.
is clear.
Yeah.
I will send you my notes so you can check. I'm sure when you read it, you will understand better because it makes more sense for me when I actually I listened to one course about the organizational theories and I took it from this course. The professor was explaining. So
Okay, you can send any.
yes, I will send you the notes and the name of the course so you can check as well. Actually, I listened only for the population ecology because I had no time for the others. So you can do the same.
Okay, this is for population ecology theory.
Yes.
All the related
I think
notes.
it could be asked in the oral, but not in the written because, you know, Tuba Hoca said that she is not a big fan of this theory, but I don't know. Just
And
my
even in
idea.
her course, she in 120 slides, she pass.
Yes.
And didn't
But I
mention all
remember
the
she
slides.
asked it, I think, during the final exam. I think she asked this question.
Yes, she eliminated the agency and the transaction costs.
No.
I was prepared for the transaction
No,
costs, but
she asked for the resource dependency theory and
Now,
postmodernism
each
theory.
one of us had like different questions. For example, my assignment was resource dependency theory,
Yes.
so I did not study for this one.
Yes.
So I had the population ecology theory.
Okay. So this is for the population ecology, resource dependency theory, and the transaction cost theory and agency theory. What you call it, the adaptive theory of organization. I think these are very easy theories. Hopefully, one of
Yes.
them will be, but we can fast go through it.
Okay.
So the resource dependency theory, we have resource dependency theory and we have resource-based view of the firm. The resource dependency theory concentrates on how organization behave and the effective behavior affected by the external resource the organization utilize, and organization ability to gather and exploit resources faster than the others, than the competitors. Jeffrey Beffer and Gerald Slangic is the pioneers for this theory, and they wrote about it in the external control of organization, a resource dependence perspective. The assumption of the theory that organization comprise as internal and external association of external exchange. So an organization exchange resource with the environment. The environment contain valued resource for the organization survivors. Organizations seek to fulfill the related objective, acquiring the resource and decreasing the dependency of other organization on its resource, in its acquired resource. So it acquired resource and wants the other organization to depend on the organization, in its organization, in acquiring the resource. Depending on other resource influence the decision inside the organization. So if you have, if you are in need in resource, it will influence and affect your decision-making process and how you are taking decisions regarding the organization. Organizations that have resource, other needs, can have control power over the other organization from each other. So the type of resource: tangible, intangible, and organizational capability. The tangible related to financial, like cash and capacity to raise equity and borrowing capacity. Physical, like modern plant, favorable manufacturing location, state of art of machinery and production facilities or something like that. Intangible, like a human resource, skills, capabilities, specific practice and the procedures and the reputation of the organization. Organization capabilities, like customer service, like innovations, like product development or something like that. These are the type of resource: tangible, intangibles, and organizational capabilities. Resource dependency strategy. In order to acquire resource, there's some strategies that you can follow, as organization can follow. Do merger through vertical integration. Reduce competition by acquiring other firm, or control over resource backward integration, control over supply to customer forward integration. So you can do horizontal integration, backward integration, or forward integration to acquire the resource. Joint venture, go with other, enter into other organization relationship, like doing a strategic alliance. Partial absorption for the resource happen when organization mutually dependent, but the partner acquire more resource. So the partners have a strategic control. So you can go like doing joint venture with your suppliers or your distributors or something like that. Board of director. The board of directors of the organization must be formed based on the abilities of the member of the board to acquire resource. So you don't want to acquire or to form a board of directors that incapable of acquiring resources from the environment. So the form of the board of directors related to how the company can acquire resource. The political action, gaining political support, executive successions, make sure that your CEO is available of doing the decisions that improve the organization capabilities of having environmental resource or acquiring resource from the environment. These are the resource dependency strategy: merger, joint venture,
there's also cooptation. There are 6 strategies.
Cooperation, cooptation.
Not cooperation, cooptation. Yes, exactly. Exactly the way you wrote it. Cooptation.
But the program.
Yeah.
It's cooperation between the competitors, but don't compete with others, like, cooperate with others.
Yeah, it's like not only with competitors, even with suppliers, competitors with suppliers, by like including one of them in your like having a representative of the supplier or the competitor join your board of directors. So this way you can have also access to resources.
Mhm. Contribution, this resource theory, it's contribute to management, bring issues of power to forefront of organization studies, improve the research regarding board of director compositions and it's the importance of this composition. It explains behavior of organization and its adaptability with the environment in order to gain a required resource for its survival. The critiques for this theory, organization success not depend only on the resource, other factor not considered inside the theory. The resource-based view of the firm, which is related to resource theory. The definition, framework define the strategic resource the organization can exploit to gain competitive strategic advantage. The firm key resources, rules of management, and converting these resources to competitive advantage. This is the resource-based view of the firm. This Professor Edith Rinzoro of the growth of the firm is the pioneer for the resource-based view. The assumption. The assumption based in that the organization must utilize its internal resource to gain competitive advantage rather than going outside the firm and looking for other external opportunities. You have some resource, you need to analyze it and to how you can manipulate your resource to gain competitive advantage. It's easier to exploit new opportunities with the available resource rather than seeking opportunities and need resources from outside the organization to acquire these opportunities or to have these opportunities. So you are seeking new opportunities with the available resource inside your organization. Type of the resource. Like we mentioning it earlier, it's tangible, intangible, and organization capabilities. And resource must be the characteristic of the resource. The resource that acquired by the organization must be heterogeneous, which means that your resource must be different from other resource, immobile, unable to move freely from organization to organization. So your resource cannot move to another organization. The Verne approach or the Verne system of evaluating the resource must be valuable, rare, inimitable, non-substitutable, and the organization must be organized to move or to use these resources in a professional and competitive way. So you might have valuable resource, rare resource, inimitable resource, non-substitutable resource, but you cannot utilize your capabilities and capacity to how you can utilize these resources. The organization not organized for this. So this is the Verne approach. The contribution of the management, important contribution of the field of the strategic management, key insight regarding the fact that not all the resources are equally important and the organization must possess the important resource, and the role of a human capital in building sustainable competitive advantage. So you are not relying only in the physical resource, you also have human capabilities that must be also taken care of. The critiques of the theory, it has a limited perspective implication. It tells managers that they should search and find high potential resource, but it doesn't give insight about how we can do that. The Verne approach is not enough to sustain an external environment. Is the theory still valid? The theory is still valid, hence acquiring competitive advantages through resource is very important for all the organization. I think it's this is about this theory. Any addition?
No, everything is covered.
Yes, and it's a clear theory, let's say, much easier than the population, more easier than
Yeah.
the population. Yeah.
This is about resource dependency theory.
Okay.
About the transaction cost theory. So we have the definition. The theory that states that the goal of organization is to minimize the cost of exchange resource in the environment. So the transaction cost theory only deals not of the basic cost of the raw materials or production or something like that. It concentrates only on the cost that associated with doing the transaction. So cost while making exchange, etc., or when the cost incurred when you exchange resource with the environment, or internally exchange of the resource, even not with the environment, but also internally. These exchanges are not adding value to the customer. So the theory concentrate on this type of costs, transaction. Williamson, 1979 up to 1986. He's the pioneer for this theory. The cost incurred without adding value to the customer. Type of the transaction cost while making economic exchange, enforcing agreement, transferring goods or services, search for information, bargaining and decision cost, policing and enforcement cost, to make sure for policing and enforcement cost that to make sure that the other party will apply the agreement. So these are the components of the transaction cost. The pioneers Oliver Williamson. The assumption. The assumption related to transaction cost theory, organizations try to organize the exchange in their product and services in the most economic way. The exchange influenced by the bounded rationality of the decision makers and the benefit of the people involved in the exchange. Can be used in strategic management, hence economy is the main strategic goal for the organization. So you are dealing with this concept. Source of the transaction cost, from where it comes, the transaction cost, from bounded rationality, from opportunism behavior, and from the risk. Bounded rationality, it's the limitation of cognitive ability of the decision maker inside the organization. Opportunism, it's opportunism. It's when some party try to deceive or to get benefit from other party, and the risk which related to doing business. Transaction cost increase and decrease when we have specific assets, when we have uncertainty, when we have limited vendors, when we have moral hazards, when we have adverse selection or hidden information. And it's decreased when we don't have specific product and we have low uncertainty, so the transaction cost decrease.
I'm sorry, I think moral hazard and adverse selection, these are related to agency theory. When you're adverse selection is that when you're selecting the wrong employee, sometimes it might, add up to your costs.
Yes, it's mentioned in the agency theory, and
is
also
it
it's
also mentioned in transaction?
Yes, it's a mention in the transaction because it's related to opportunism behavior, which increase the transaction cost. It's related to moral hazard of the CEO or the employees involved in the transaction.
Okay.
Adverse selection, it's like related to if the CEO hide information about his past on the organization in order to be accepted, and then become more he will do opportunistic behavior more often. So this is the idea. If he do opportunistic behavior, then the organization will incur more transaction costs. The cost for the transaction will increase and decrease when we don't have a specific product, when the low uncertainty, many vendors or exchange partners. So if you have too many vendors, you can feel free to get the resource or do the transaction with any one of them with lower cost. Variable impact, the transaction cost, frequency. The frequency, how many times the action happen. So if the action happen frequent and more often, then the transaction cost related to this will be more. When we have uncertainty, when we have lack of trust, increased lack of information, or related to opportunism, environmental uncertainty, and when we have that asset specificity, like you need to build a site or new location to bring new physical assets to that's related to this transaction only, and you cannot benefit from it after that. When you have a human capital specificity, dedicated specificity, and then capacity created to serve customer in large markets, brand or name capital. Parties must maintain reputation for brand names. This last one I didn't understand it, but dedicated specificity is like capacity that produced inside the organization to serve one customer. But a brand name capital, parties must maintain reputation for a brand name. I forget about it. What does it mean?
I don't know. I didn't study this, honestly.
Brand name capital. Okay, not important. You can just mention the other four. To make or buy decision, agency theory versus transaction cost theory. In agency theory, we are talking about individual agent. In transaction cost theory, we're talking about individual transaction. So in agency, we are talking about the agent. In TCT, we are talking about transaction.
So these theories focus on the same thing. The agency theory focuses on the agent, basically, and the transaction costs on the transaction, how to make it more cheaper, or how to manage the agent, let's say, in the agency theory. And they are both theories that come from the economy. And that's why they try to minimize the risks. And that's why we have the same concepts, basically, in the two theories.
Minimize the risk and minimize the cost incurred by the organization.
Yes, firstly, the cost and the risk of some situations that may not be in the best for the company, for the shareholders.
Yes. So its contribution to management, it's related, it shed light about various transaction costs that need to be managed, the different conditions that lead to increase the cost without adding value. So organization need to minimize these costs. The critiques for the theory, transaction cost not observable, empirical research must be performed. Production cost play no role in the theory. The concept of opportunism neglect the human factor and presenting under socialized view of the human action. Environmental certainty, the theory deals with environmental uncertainty as a threat, while it can be an opportunity. Is it still valid? Still valid, hence the transaction cost still exists. In spite of the critiques, the organization need to carefully manage value unrelated activities to increase its profit margin. These are the main topics under the transaction cost theory.
Okay.
Okay, agency theory. The definition of the agency theory is a principle. The agency theory is a principle that is used to explain the resolve issues in relation between business principal and their agents, the board of director and the CEO. Most commonly, that relation is the one between shareholders as principals and company executive as agents. The pioneer for this theory is Jensen and McKilling theory of the firm, managerial behavior, agency cost, and ownership. Jensen and McKilling. Assumption of this theory, employee-employer relationship was the start. Managers will not treat the company as their own, therefore managing them should be monitored frequently. Distinction between business ownership and business management. Have controversial interests. Both parties might have controversial interests and act based on their interest. Common interest determination is important for firm survival. So aligning the interest of the principal and agent is very important. If the agency contract well planned and designed carefully, the problem could be eliminated and finished. So what contribute to the problem is the type of the contract between the agency, the principal and the agent. So we have two types of contract, the behavior centered contract, which will become long-term contract, lower risk taken by the agent. Agent have no risk to be taken in this type of contract because he will have fixed salary aligned with the work. Outcome-centered contract is short-term and it offers stocks and bonuses instead of salary. And this in order to transfer the risk from principal to agent. So if the company lose, the agent will lose also. A problem that this theory deals with, the theory deals with information asymmetry. Sometimes agent has more information than the principal and he willingly or unwillingly choose to not share this information with the principal. It's related to agency relationship. It's emphasized the agency cost that increase and decrease based on alignment with the principal goals. So if the CEO and the agent and the principal has aligned goals, the agency cost will decrease. When the agent does not align with the principal goals, when does not work align with the principal goals, zero if the agent work in line with goals, more and more as the employer goes away from these goals, very high when the agent work according to his interest. So if he work for his interest. Type of agency cost. We have three types of agency cost: observable cost, bonding cost, residual cost. The observable cost is the monitoring and monitoring cost incurred by the principals to monitor the actions of the agent. Bonding cost is the cost incurred by the agent to operate according to the observable cost. This cost I didn't understand it well. Can anyone explain it?
The bonding cost.
Bonding cost.
Bonding cost is basically when the agent uses the resources of the company or the organization for their own interest, for their own benefits or interests.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they wrote it in the second statement, but the first one was the cost incurred by the agent to operate according to the observable cost. What does this mean?
You just focus. Don't focus on things that you don't understand. Just focus on the second phrase, which gives you the core meaning of the.
Yes, because these two statements are contradictory or not related to each other. So
bonding is mostly like when agents use for their own self.
For
like
their own self. Yes. Residual cost is the trading cost incurred by the principal in order to enhance the decision-making efficiency or effectiveness of the agent. Because if the agent do bad decisions, it might increase the agency cost or cause a loss for the organization. The adverse selection principle, which is the wrong selection of the agent because he hide some information from the principal. Moral hazard, moral and corruption of the agent. This are the problem that the agency theory deals with. Its contribution to management. This theory is measurable. So the variable of this theory are measurable. It contributes to rewarding and benefit system. So this theory can initiate the rewarding and benefit system, contribute to sharing the decision right among the agent. The critiques of the theory. The idea of the theory based on the agent is behaving based on self-interest. The theory never mentioned that the principle that they also may act based on selfish behavior and their best interest against the agent. The cost of growth bounded with the wrong decision of the agent only, without mentioning the other costs that might related to board of director or the principal misbehavior or bad decisions. The theory is still valid, hence it deals with the continuous relation between the principals and agents.
I also want to add something. I have it in my notes, which is how we can minimize or control the agency problems, like the problems that may arise between the agent and the principal, how we can control them. They mentioned here 3 ways. One of them is by board of directors. The board of directors, they can, are you, okay.
Continue.
The first one is board of directors. They monitor the behaviors and actions of the agents. This is how they can minimize the problems. Second is giving the agents equity ownership. Including them and giving them some ownership in the company will help making the interest of the agent and the principal to be aligned.
Ownership.
Giving ownership, equity ownership to agents to align the interests of principals and agents.
It's related to the type of contract, centered contract with the agency and the principal and the agent, which related you design the contract between the principal and the agent based on the stock sharing, not the basic salary or fixed salary or something like that, in order to minimize the agency cost. The third one, you mentioned this.
Here they mention also market for corporate control. It says controlling the misbehaving agents by an active merger and acquisition, but I really didn't understand how.
Maybe by having some auditors from the outside.
Yeah, okay, you can include some auditors without having to have a merger and acquisition, I think, but
yes. Having some auditors may be related to monitor the behavior.
Yes, maybe
board of directors. Yes, will assign external auditor to monitor the behavior.
Exactly.
2 is good.
2 is
okay. This is for the agency theory and its related ideas and elements. So institutional theory, we go through it in a hurry. And the first, the contingency theory. Also, what's related to institutional theory, also some relation between contingency and institutional theory. The contingency theories, pioneers of the theory, John Woodward, Tom Burns, Paul R. Lawrence, and J.W. LaRoche, and Henry Mintzberg, the structuring of organization. The pioneers, John Woodward, talk about the nature of production process would determine which form could be optimal. So the focal point about contingency theory that the organization shaped its structure based on the situation or the environment it's working or it's work with. So the structure, according to the contingency or to the situation the organization is facing at the moment. So the structure can be changed if the situation change. This is the main assumption.
So there is no best way to manage a situation, or
yes,
It all depends on the environment.
Of course. The Tom Burns talk about mechanistic and organic structure, three different social system, formal authority, technology relation with the environment, cooperative system of people with different aspiration, the political system, the competitions and cooperations of power. Therefore, Tom Burns, mechanistic and organic structure, the main assumption of the theory. Laroche talk about that people implement organization to satisfy their needs. So people need the organization, or organization need the people. People need the organization because the organization satisfy the people need. Units and formal structure to cope with the environment also. Henry Mintzberg talked about the 5 basic organizational configuration. The simple structure, which used by entrepreneur companies, the machine bureaucracy, based that when the company have standardization of work, so they follow the machine bureaucracy structure. Professional bureaucracy, when the organization have a standardization of skills. The adhocracy, innovative organization, the organization that mutually adjustment and support staff and research and development, support innovation in new technology or something like that. The divisionalized form, diversified organization, when we talking about standardizations of output. Actually, this is maybe need more clearance. I've tried to find something, but I didn't find the divisionalized form, diversified organization.
Maybe it's connected with the mass production about the standardization of the output. We want same products with the same quality, looking pretty much the same, but I'm not sure, just an idea. That's why, or maybe we have some divisions in the organizations, like let's say we are a process, we have the process organizational structure where we produce some tomatoes. We have different processes for the tomato production. We can dice them, we can stew them, we can put them in cans, something like that. That's why we have different divisions for our tomato company. Maybe this came to my mind now, but I'm not sure.
But if you are talking about standardization of production.
Yes,
but the standardization of production might have, we have it in the machine bureaucracy structure, maybe more related to it. But if the final output is comprised of different units, maybe each unit of the final output is manufactured or created or done or produced in different units.
Maybe.
So each units produce specific product, and the whole organization then put all these units together and come up with final products.
The division of work, like
division of work. Yes.
Okay.
These are the 5 different basic organizational configuration of, suggested by Henry Mintzberg. These are the structure that the organization might choose based on the environment. So you are in very turbulent environments, very technological advanced environment, you need to adopt the adhocracy innovative structure. If you are in a stable, you might go for machine bureaucracy structure. If you are starting, so you might go for simple structure, and so on. And Mintzberg divided the part of the organization for strategic epics, the people on the top that do the strategic decision.
Yes.
And the middle, you might have technostructure, middle line, or support staff in this middle of the pyramid. And then at the lower level of the pyramid, you have operative core employees. So this is the key component of the key part of the organization offered by Henry Mintzberg.
Yes, he has many
Many contributions
theories.
to management.
Yeah, 10. I only studied the 10 managerial roles and the 10 schools. That's it.
In the schools, yes. Main assumption of the contingency theory in design, the organization is designed based on the situation. The environment in which the organization operates will shape its structure, and the organization structure in low uncertainty or high uncertainty based on the situation. With low uncertainty, you need to have a mechanistic, simple structure, traditional pattern of hierarchy, reliant on formal rules and regulations, and vertical communication. Structural decision-making is possible. Central decision-making, low differentiation, standard level of output. When you have low uncertainty, so the organization follow with the mechanistic simple structure that characterized with what we said: central decision-making, low differentiation, standard level of output, rules and regulation, vertical communication, and decision-making, structured decision-making. When you have high uncertainty, you go for organic structure. Organic structure characteristic that is less rigidity, more participation. So the decision is participated along the different parties, not centered. More reliance on workers to define and redefine their position and relationship. Decentralized decision-making, high differentiation, flexible, innovative. Yani low uncertainty, the organization structure. There is no best way of running or doing a task inside the organization. The situation will define which best way or which way to handle the situation. There is no standard way of doing business. The variable that the organization need to adopt based on the environmental condition, the technological change, and the production process. These are the conditions that the organizations must deal with in order to shape and to formalize its structure based on these three conditions: environmental change, technological change, and the production process change. The theory deals with the organization as open system, because the main assumption, as we mentioned, it's how the environment affects the type of structure the organization follow. Managed carefully to adapt the individual and environmental needs. The organization must be managed carefully in order to be adapted to the individual and environmental needs. The problem that the theory deals with is the closed system problem that offered by classical theory approach, and the organization adaptability with the turbulent and unstable environment. The contribution of the theory to management, it emphasizes the importance of organizational flexibility, the adoption to change as defense mechanism for organization survivability. Of course, it is still valid. The organization need to adopt.
Maybe we should also talk, when we're talking about the contingency theory, we should also mention Friedrich's contingency theory of leadership as well, because
it's another theory. Yeah.
Yes, in the leadership course,
in
maybe.
Leadership, because I thought Muhammad he mixed the two theories together when he provide us with the summary, because here we are talking about the structure of the organization, and the other theory, the contingency leadership theory, talk about how the individual leader adapt itself with the situation inside the organization. So in leadership, you have another theory about it. So it's also simple and focused theory, not too many variables inside.
I just want to add something for the pioneers, for the John Woodward. If in case it's asked, John Woodward in the first place.
First one.
Yes, she actually made some not experimental, but quantitative research. She studied firms in England. She's English.
Mhm.
And she found out that the technology reflects the organizational structure and the processes. Like you said, one of the variables that the organizations need to adapt. She found that technology reflects the structure. And she classified organizations in 3 types. These are unit-based production organization, unit-based mass production organizations, and process production organizations. And based on these classifications, she said that unit-based organizations, unit production based,
Unit-based,
of course,
mass
this is the
production-based,
technology
process-based.
they use.
Mhm.
Sorry?
Unit-based,
Process-based.
mass production-based, or
Yes,
process-based. Mhm.
process-based. Process when we have those pipelines, when the gasoline companies maybe, or the chemical production companies.
Mhm.
Unit-based, when we have a unit-based company, our structure must be organic, like we had this organic and mechanistic structure you explained. When we have a unit-based technology, we must have organic structure, because our customers, every customer will have different will request different things from us, and that's why we can't have some centralized production or standardized production. In the mass production, of course, it's mechanistic, because everything is clear. We have standardization, we have rules, we have the chain of command. Everyone knows what to do. It's divided, jobs are divided into tasks. And the process-based also organic structure, because the process never stops. These companies are like running for 24 hours. The production process never stops. That's why we need to be careful with the production. That's why we need more organic structures. And also she found that these were her assumptions for the.
Mhm.
But it could be asked. I wanted to mention.
Okay. Thank you, Nuri.
You're welcome. And also for Lawrence and Lorsch, I think we have differentiation and fragmentation. It was something like that, this theory, but I'm not sure. They also made some studies in the organizations. Differentiation and fragmentation, I have to check. I will tell you later, okay?
Mostly what you are being asked to mention regarding the theories is, what do you know about contingency theory? Or what
Yeah,
do you
it
know
will be
about
easier,
Kelvin?
yeah, if they ask.
It will
in
not
general.
be specific in one pioneer.
Yeah,
or
like
something
what
like
are
that.
these, like this, they're not going to like each pioneer and
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great.
You
I
are
think-
requested, will be requested to propose or to highlight the general idea and main assumption and so on, or something like that, in order to
Okay.
show that you are knowing this theory or
Yes,
something like that.
at least you have some idea.
Mhm. We need 72 theory, and we need 72 out of 100. We don't want 99.
was it, I think Nurgilo just said 71, but I think it's very stupid, like the way they they grade. I mean, we have 5 questions and it's out of 100. Why 71? Why not 70?
Actually, it's 70.20 something or 30 something. I found it in the website. It's how
funny-
maybe how they calculated. They use
I
some
don't know
mathematical formulas.
Why the points? Why don't you make it just 70?
71.
Yes.
Yeah, 71.
71. It shows like to be precise. You need to have 71.
Yeah.
So we will have like 2 hours and 30 minutes.
30
Yeah.
minutes for each
30
question.
minutes. Yes. Yeah.
What's your strategy would be to go to read all the questions and start with the easiest one, or to start one by one?
Panic. Right.
Just-
What I know. Then
I
panic
think
and
scan-
finish.
I think I will scan like real fast so I can start. I will not take time thinking about each question. I will scan them very fast and then see which one I can start to answer very quickly. And then I will go to the ones that need more thinking.
Actually, my strategy with master exams, we have somehow questions like this. We scan all the questions and we write the key points for each question.
Mm.
You just write key points to remember each question. Then you start to solve. Maybe when you are solving the first question and you come to the next, you forget something. While you are fresh and your mind is not overwhelmed, you can
Yes.
just write the main idea in the side notes or side paper, and
Yeah.
for each question, and you then go through the details about what you know about it. Because if you shocked with some questions that you don't know anything about it, it will you just try what you are going to do with this question. Just yeah, I call it triggering words. I call
Yeah.
it like
Yes,
this.
yes. It's a good strategy actually, because when you are writing about one question, you are focusing on that question, and when you came to the second question, you may forget some parts because you were very focused on this. Maybe I can apply this strategy. Thank you.
So it's good to dump your everything in the paper and then you start writing in detail.
Yes.
Yeah,
But if can we have some notes? Is it allowed? Maybe we can.
Yes, of course. It's
Okay.
paper exam, so you have some side papers or something like that to.
Okay, that's great. We are
Right.
13 people. I saw.
It's about 13, yes.
Oh, too much.
And even most of them, they didn't even say that, like they didn't even mention that they're gonna take the exam with us.
Yes, I thought that Mariam took the exam the last semester, but I saw her name.
Yeah.
Mm.
Asad, for example,
Yes, he never told.
He finished very fast the courses.
Kaola also, she is.
Yeah, because of
finished.
online courses, it's easier to take 4 or 5 courses in one semester.
Yes.
This is why they finished within 2 semesters, I think.
Yeah, even when it was still face to face, some people like Imran and Fatima also, they finished like within 2 semesters. It was like, why the rush?
Maybe because they are concentrated on finishing the university or the learning. You don't have the work or some.
People have other commitments. Yeah, that's why they need to finish fast.
Okay, this is for the organizational theory. We have critical theory of organization. I think we no need to mention it because it's very complicated and very sophisticated. And my English, I don't think it's proper for explaining such a theory. Hopefully, we won't ask about it.
I hope so.
I hope so.
The system theory is also a nice and easy one.
Easy, yeah. It's easy.
Yes. So it's talking about the organization as a system. The main component of the system, the input, the processing of the input and the output, and the feedback process from the environment. So the system take resources from the environment as input, process it inside the organization, and give it back to the environment as output. And during this loop, we have feedback between the environment and the feedback process, So the input might be a resource, information needed to supply the organization system, a process or throughputs, the activities within the organization system that gets work done, the output, the outcomes, product and services created or delivered by the organization. The characteristic of the system as a definition, a system is an organized collection of parts united by prescribed interaction and designated for the accomplishment of a specific goal or general purpose. So it's organized part interact with each other in order to accomplish a specific goals. The characteristics of the system, it's composed of parts, it's encapsulated, can be nested inside another system. So the system can be inside another systems or too many systems inside a very big system. Exchange information and material with the environment, a process input to output, or self-regulated. It has boundary, but the boundaries are light boundaries, so the exchange between other systems are available. So it has the characteristic of permeability, permeable boundaries in order to exchange with other systems. The main assumption of the theory, it looks about how the organization works as a whole organism. It shifts from internal characteristic of the organization to the external. It works as the organization as open system and depend on the environment to its continuous connection with the environment. It's used a set of technique to understand the interaction between organization and environment. There's no one best way. This is to explain the models we presented. Cause and effect to find optimal solution and consistency between the subsystem. Each system has subsystems, and the subsystem must be consistent with the overall system in order to produce the output. The concept of entropy mentioned by Nouri, system tend to run down, deteriorate, and move toward disorganization. This is the definition of entropy. So you need to have a balance between the energy resources and information coming into the system, help it reach homeostates or equilibrium state. The concept of synergy, simple explanations that 2 + 2 = 5. So the synergy between the two systems might, the sum of the output might be greater than the input. So if two systems are collaborating together, working together, the output will be greater than each one if each one in the individual will work individually. Individual system work individually. A greater effect than the sum of parts, like marketing and sales cooperate together, the benefit for the organization will be higher if the marketing work alone and sales work alone. This is the entropy and synergy that might be asked about. Problem that the system theory deal with, the classical theory, single dimension static structure. This is in the classical theory. The system theory deals with continuous change. So the organization adaptability to survive in turbulence environment. So most of these theories like system theory, contingency theories deals with the adaptability with the environment and refuse the rigid structure or rigid approach offered by classical theory, the one best way approach. The contribution to management, it solves some of the problem of the classical approach, emphasize the interaction between the organization and the environment, and the interaction between internal unit inside the organization, the role of collaboration and how each part affect each other. So this is the characteristic of the system is some part of the system have a change or something happened to it, it will affect the other part. describe the organization as mechanistic way where each part depend on the other and affected by the other parts, giving insight about how to build a systematic organization and how to look at the interrelated activities inside the organization and how these parts can interact with outside environment. If the system is still valid, if of course it's still valid, and here's a YouTube link to more illustration for the system theory. Any addition?
No, everything is clear and very precise.
It's an
Yes.
easy one also.
Yes, without no additional concepts.
Yeah, straightforward.
The human resource theory, established in year 1957 with its pioneer like Elton Mayo and its famous Hawthorne study, Mary Parker Foilates, Abraham Maslow, Douglas McGregor, Theory X and Theory Y. Those are the pioneers of
Is it called the human resource theory or human relations?
human relation.
In some
Is
sources
it called
in the internet,
some use human
Some-
resources and
resource.
human relations?
Yes,
Okay.
some use a human relation, some use a human resource.
Mhm.
The main assumption of the theory, organization exists to serve human needs. Organization needs people and people needs organization. Organization needs what needs from people. The organization needs from people ideas, energies, and talents, and skills, and workers, and so on. And people needs from organization careers, salaries, work opportunities, and of course the produced product. The two must be fit together and not try to exploit each other. The people not try to exploit the organization, and the organization not to exploit the humans or the people. The good fit between the organizational need and the human needs means that the organization each part will achieve its goal. Organizations should allow individual to grow and develop. The individual development will help organization from dependence to codependence. Organization influence human behavior, and the human behavior shape the organization. These are the main assumptions of the human relation theory. The main assumption is the organization need people, and the alignment of interest must exist in order to reach or to attain goals for each parties. The theories deal with the collaboration between people and organization for mutual benefit. The contribution to management is the studied influence by human schools. This theory opened the doors for further research in leadership, in motivation, in behavior, individual behavior in team and the group, and the effect of working environment and the organizational change. It is still valid. It's rich studies about management principles inspired by this theory. Its strength help address issues of leadership, motivation, teamwork, place, environment, effect of power and influence, and other related topics. Expanded the definition and role of leadership and its effect. Stresses the importance of relationship, cohesiveness, and interdependency between humans and organization. The fit between individual and organization. It is an optimistic theory, not focused on conflict between individual and organization as other theories often do. The Hawthorne effect helped shed light on employees' productivity. Theory X and Y added a new lens of behavioral studies. Its weakness perhaps placed too much importance in consideration for the employee. Consider employee in a very high degree. Consider productivity through the lens of employees' behavior, not the other way around. The famous critiques for Maslow contributions are not supported. It's only empirical approach. These are the human relation theory. The alignment between the two, the organization and the people need organization need people, and the alignment of goals, contribution to management, influence, leadership, motivation, individual behavior, and its strength and weakness. Any addition for the human relation theory?
No. Can we look at the pioneers? Mary Follett, Elton. I think maybe we can also add Chester Bernard, because he's also talking about cooperative systems and involving, and that the organization cannot operate without employees. It's not going to, yeah, I mean, without the contribution of employees, it will not be effective. And that employees are not only motivated by monetary incentives, but also non-monetary incentives.
Mhm.
He also touched in this area, giving importance to employees. So I think we should include it as well.
Actually, there's too many interaction between the new classical theory and the human relation theory. Some
Yeah.
confusion happens. Some books are mentioned the two together
Yeah,
as
it's
one.
under it anyways. Yes, human relations is under new classical.
Yes, so in the new classical theory, the pioneers.
You already
example,
mentioned that. Okay.
Yes, I mentioned Chester
Mm.
Bernard and Robert Merton, Herbert A. Salmon, Philip Selznick. Chester Bernard, his assumption is compatible with the human relation theory, actually, but in the textbooks and in the studies, they mention it in new classical approach or new classical theory. I think it's one theory because they both criticize the classical theory of organization about.
As if it's one. I
Yes.
studied this as if it's one theory, because assumptions of new classical theory and human relations, it's the same.
The same actually, yes.
Yeah.
So it's good to mention Chester Bernard about the human relation also, because he's very famous and the pioneer of this approach, you know. So we can put it here also.
Also, he lived very long and he influenced other, like the strategy, and also you don't know where to put him.
Yes, he wrote lots about firms and management of the firms. So about Chester Bernard, there is a need for people inside the organization. People cooperate to achieve the goal of the organization. He wrote about the responsibility of the executive. The responsibility of the executive inside the organization to create and maintain sense of purpose inside the organization, develop moral code and ethical visions, establish a system of formal and informal communication, ensure the willingness of people to cooperate, impose positive incentive for the employee inside the organization, not negative incentive, bringing person into cooperative relationship with the organization. So he
also about Chester Bernard, he has also another theory, the acceptance of authority theory. If, for example, we were asked about Chester Bernard in special, he talked about the acceptance of authority theory, which means that the employees will accept your authority or the right of your authority if they believe that, how can I say it? If they believe that you are legitimate to have that right. I can send it to you later on. Also, he talked about the formation of formal groups within, the formation of informal groups within the organization.
Formation of informal
groups within the organization, because in organizations, just as there are formal relationships among the members, there are also some groups, people making groups, and because they have social interactions.
They call the principles of efficiency and effectiveness also. the efficiency in achieving corporate needs, and the effectiveness in fulfilling individual motives. The keyword for Bernard is cooperative, communication, moral code, positive incentive, person and organization, and acceptance theory, as you mentioned. There's Douglas McGregor and Elton Mayo and Abraham Maslow. We can go through their contribution in organization behavior.
Yeah.
And the main assumption, we did it. So I think it's very straightforward also.
Mhm.
The human relationship theory. The new classical approach theory is somehow similar to the human relation theory, with pioneers like Chester Bernard, Robert Merton, Hobart S. Simon, Phillips, Liz, and Jake. And the main assumption revised for a classical organization theory, critique the classical organization theory for humanization absent, the internal and external organization relation. Hence, the classical organization theory deals with organization as a closed system with no interaction with outside, focus on inside, process used in decision making, classical, individual from top to bottom, employee just for work, and management to take decisions. This is the classical approach of decision making. The new classical approach of regarding decision making is collaborative and sharing process. Organization cannot be as self-contained isolated from surrounding environment. So the open system terminology or the open system approach. And the new classical theory introduced sociology into organizational theory. The problem that the new classical theory deals with is the deficiencies of a classical view of organization, which deals with the human as machines and the decision-making deficiencies in the classical theory. It contributes to management, emphasizes the human aspect of management, and is still valid until these days. Its strength try to cover the holes in classical and fix it. It's open doors for further research regarding the humanization of the organization. It helps incorporating different field organization studies such as sociology. Its weakness, it cannot stand alone because it's only a critique and try to fix the issues of the classical approach and its deficiencies, and cannot stand alone. This is the new classical theory approach. I think it's because it's in the first, we already read it several times.
No, Nuria, it's okay. We don't have much left anyways. I think we're gonna
Okay,
finish the
okay.
theory and then we're gonna all leave.
We discussed actually this
Oh, okay.
the last one actually with Zaidan last week. So thank you for this session, and I hope to see Zaidan tomorrow. Maybe we can go through the other theories.
Yeah, actually, based on Tuba Hoja, I think in this period we need to concentrate in the main 4 topics she mentioned. The
Okay.
theory, the organizational behavior, strategic management, and human resource management. And the other topics.
Aidan, can you please send me what her
Okay,
voice notes that she sent
I
in the
will
group?
send her voice messages for you.
Yeah, please.
And
Okay.
what about tomorrow? What's your plan for tomorrow? Do you have time? Or
Yeah, for now it seems like maybe, but it depends until tomorrow because start of a week working.
Mhm.
But let's see by tomorrow we can decide. Maybe at the same time if you're free.
Okay.
What are we going to discuss tomorrow? Organizational behavior?
Organizational behavior, I think it's full of too many topics also, and too many theories also. It's very good if we can do it tomorrow. And the human resource management, I think it's a little bit simpler than the others.
Yeah, I think maybe in human resource, I'll go through the presentations that Nuria sent, because there are some new concepts that we need to learn.
I don't think they will ask for this concept because they will do it for if there's a question regarding human resource management, it will be from the main topics and the slides, career planning, recruitment, training, performance appraisal, and some issues related to.
Yeah, I mean, you never know, because when I spoke once with Beli Zoja, because you know she gives the course, she said read the articles that we used to give during the course.
Okay, we can go through it and do some summarization for the main
So
concepts. of the
maybe we
course.
can just read them, like have an idea at least if we have a question about one of these topics, so we can be able to answer.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm leaving for now.
Okay.
Let's be in touch and
I think
population.
we're all leaving.
It's 2 hours,
Okay.
so we cannot sustain it anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, okay then.
More than enough.
I'm sure Zaidan is now even more tired.
Yes, he was
Thank
so
you,
tired all
Zaidan.
the time.
No
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah, thank you,
But
Zaidan.
it's
Thank
good
you.
to
Thank you
have
very
because
much,
I lost
Zaidan.
my energy during the day, but this 2 hours make a refreshment for.
Theory
and
is
we get
motivated you
motivated
now.
us, yes.
Okay.
Okay. See you
Okay,
tomorrow,
yeah,
inshallah.
Good evening and
Good
see
luck.
you. Okay. Good luck. Bye bye.
Bye.